another edition of Hollee Chanel Uncut. Now, this is an installment of the hashtag Wellesley 10 for 10. I'm celebrating my 10-year reunion of graduating from Wellesley College right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm recounting some of these 10 of my favorite memories in honor of my 10-year anniversary as a graduate. And so this is the second installment that I had to do via video because it's too long to write and I wanted you to get the entire essence of it all. So this memory is courtesy of Dana T. Weeks, class of 2003. I was a sophomore, she was a junior, and there was a Delta Sigma Theta sorority incorporated party on campus. Now, Deltas usually are kind of paired up with the men of Omega Psi Phi fraternity incorporated. So that means that, like, if the Deltas have a party, the Qs come out to, you know, support. But the problem that we had in Boston was that usually there was only one Q in town, like one lone Q who would be at all the parties representing hard by himself, right? So for this particular party, there were some Qs shipped in from Rhode Island. So I think like 4 additional Qs came into this party. So the party goes off without a hitch. Everything is cool. We go back to Stone Davis' dorm. I can't remember whose room we were in. And we were all having fun. Everything is cool. I go to my room to retrieve something, and I noticed that a friend of mine, who will remain nameless, is all the way at the other end of the hall with one of the Qs who was shipped in from Rhode Island. And she's sitting there icing his knee. And so I was like, yo, like, is everything okay? And she's like, he hurt his knee and, you know, I don't know what to do. Like, I got some ice, everything is cool. I'm like, okay, cool. So then me being a dancer, I said, all right, well, let me check it out. Let me see, you know, what has happened. So I'm feeling around it and he's like screaming and writhing in pain and agony. And I was just like, ooh, you might have to go get this checked out. So I don't know how Dana appeared, but Dana materializes and we're sitting there looking at him. Oh, that's what the funny part was. The funny part is that not only were they down there, that's why it seemed weird, because they were down at the other end of the hall with the lights on and his pants were down, but she had ice on his knee. So of course I was curious and I was going to go see what had happened. So anyway, we assess the situation and decide that, okay, we need to get him to a hospital. Now, when we asked him how he injured his knee, he says, and I quote, I guess I got too hyped at the party and I was hopping too hard. So this fool was doing the Q hop all around the party and injured his knee. So we're like, well, where are your friends? Because at this point, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And he's just like, I don't know. I tried to call them. They're not answering. Like, I don't understand where they are. His boys have left him. They have gotten in the vehicle and gone back to Rhode Island. So he's just out here by himself, injured, at the mercy of 3 chicks who don't know what they're doing. Here's the funny thing. If you don't know Dana, Dana is about 5'2", maybe 100 pounds soaking wet with all her winter clothes on, right? I'm like 5'5", 5'6". I'm a little heavier, but this is a football player. I forgot to mention that. He's a football player. So we can't carry him. I can't carry him by myself. I think I was going to put him on my back, but he was just way too heavy, way too heavy. So Dana and I decide to pick him up. So she grabbed one thigh, I grabbed the other thigh. He links his arms on either side of us, and we carry him to the foyer of Stone Davis' dorm. It basically was the equivalent of walking like a block and a half, maybe 2 blocks, with this football player between 2 kind of feeble women. I shouldn't say we were feeble, but in comparison to him, we were kind of feeble. Anyway, with a car materializes out of thin air, we take him to the Newton Wellesley Hospital. We stay with him overnight. He gets a clean bill of health. He basically just sprained his knee, and I think somebody was finally able to get in touch with his boy. And the guys say that they'll be back to pick him up later the next day, probably around noon. But in the meantime, he needed some place to sleep. So Dana, oh dear, Dana says, okay, he can sleep in my room. And I was just like, well, you know, is that going to be okay? I don't want you in there with him. She's like, well, I'll come and sleep in your room. We'll leave him here. But if he steals anything, I'll cut him. And I was like, Dana, what are you going to cut him with? We're in her room. And out of nowhere, she pulls out this antique, I think maybe African carving knife. She unsheathes it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spit. But she unsheathes this African carving knife, and she looks at him in all seriousness, and she's like, I'm gonna cut you. Don't you steal nothing in my room. I will slice you. So I'm looking at her in shock and awe, because again, she's 5'2", 100 pounds soaking wet with all her winter clothes on, and she's threatening this football player, and he genuinely looks scared. This thing is like, no, ma'am, I'm not gonna do anything. So I wasn't there when they came to retrieve him, but I do believe Dana was present. He was on crutches. He had a leg brace. I do believe she may have cussed out. I shouldn't say cussed out. She had stern words for his fellow fraternity members, and that was the last that either of us saw of him. I don't think he ever made a trip back to Wellesley for another party. That is the second installment of my Wellesley 10 for 10. I hope that you enjoyed. I know it was kind of long, but hey, best memories are probably some of our longest ones. All right, thank you, and stay tuned, because I have another special Uncut coming up. Bye-bye.
I stumbled on this photograph. It kind of made me laugh. It took me way back down memory lane. I see the happiness